And we're live. Woohoo.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Donna. Thank you for being here, Donna.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to spend some time with you too.
We're excited to chat with you.
Yeah, and Donna is an amazing woman who I talked to on my Book Chat Live show in January. It
It was a
seems
long
like
time ago,
a
Tim.
long
It
time.
was.
And I said, "Oh, do you want to appear on the other show so we can talk about all the stuff we talked about in January?" And then we've been playing cancellation tennis ever since. I think it's kind of. I think I cancelled you once, and then you cancelled the show, and then you're finally here. So
Yay!
I
Before
can't
the end of
remember.
the year, we got it in.
I can't remember anything about like. I know your name's Donna. Something to do with widowhood, and I know you were like me. You were widowed, and I think from what I remember that you're kind of an expert in the finance, helping people get through the financial side of widowhood. But before I screw up things anymore, can you just describe what you do and what you're an expert in, and what makes your life joyful?
Yeah, definitely. So here's the story, Christelle. So kind of born and raised in Philadelphia, PA, and kind of grew up there, blue collar life, right? My dad was a firefighter, mom, stay-at-home mom. Wound up getting married and followed my husband abroad. He worked for Homeland Security and gave up my career to follow him. And we lived in Europe for 5 years on and off, kind of like a military life. Came back stateside and was lucky enough to get positioned back in the Philadelphia area after like 8 years of being gone, back to family and friends. And 2 months after we moved back here, my husband passed away. And so my kids
Mhm.
were 8, 11, and 12. And I was like, oh boy, like, what do we do
Mm.
now? So spent about 2 years raising my kids, working part-time in their school, trying to figure out what comes next in life, making sure they were speaking English and behaving and doing okay with the loss of their dad. And then decided it was time to recreate my career. Felt like I had a second chance in life. And I wanted to do something really meaningful out of it. So I wound up going back to school, seeing if I really liked the industry of financial planning. In particular, did education to become a certified financial planner. And those are my kids texting me now. We have one homesick. I'm going to take that phone off.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's all good. We are a blended family now of 6 kids
Yeah.
from 13 to
Ooh.
22. So
Yeah.
there we go. But end all be all. Switched my career, mentored under my current financial advisor, who I switched to after my husband passed away. My husband and I had a financial advisor years before, and like in our 20s, really young, before we moved abroad. And it was the guidance of the investments and the guidance for life insurance that really covered me after Greg passed,
Yeah.
to be able to support myself for a few years, educate my 3 kids. Switched my career on its head, and here I am all these years later, and I'm a financial planner, and I focus on financial planning for families in transition, widowhood, divorcees, and kids. After 2020, I wrote a book, and that's where Tim and I first connected, called A Guide to Widowhood: Navigating the First 3 Years with Your Heart, Soul, and Finances Intact, to really help those that had lost a partner over 2020 to have the stepping stone. So many people made some financial decisions without getting good advice because everybody was quarantined, right? Or everyone was separated. And I was like, everyone has a need, especially when we have like a traumatic event. Like, you're not quickly reaching out to a financial advisor, right? But to have a book in hand, or to have someone you love reading the book and helping direct you, is really important, to kind of give you that privacy and that strength. And then out of that popped the Widow podcast. So we do Widow Wisdom and Wealth, which is a podcast that's out there. So that's me. That's where I am. Blended family now, got remarried last year. And like I just mentioned, 6 very active kids from, 12 to 22 or 14. He's going to get mad. He's 14 now.
Congratulations. Okay, I have so many questions. We have to talk about this book. What first comes to mind is how many people are not prepared for neither divorce or widowhood. I know some people are, but so many, it just catches them completely off guard. I think of 2 scenarios: one, widowhood, as you experienced, and how many are not. It just happens overnight. And the second is divorce, where someone in a domestic violence situation has to flee and they are
Yeah.
not prepared. Can we talk about both those scenarios
Yeah.
and
100%.
and it's 2 different scenarios I asked you about because I'm curious about both. maybe what is your advice, or what do you tell people in these situations?
Yeah, 100%. And you kind of nailed it. After I was focusing on the widowhood and my clients in widowhood, I realized that some of my divorcee clients were kind of in that same boat, except it was a little bit more complicated. As Tim knows, in widowhood, like there's a lot of grief up front, but you kind of know where your finances are
Yeah.
still, right? Like after a few months, you sort through everything, you're like, okay, these are my streams of income. This is what I have. Divorcees, on the other hand, many of times, at least here in the States, there's years of battling back and forth.
Mm.
You support yourself during that time before financial settlement, as well as the fact of post financial settlement, post divorce, the actions of the former spouse can still impact you. Child support, loss of income, moving, things like that. And so I actually went back to school because I always say you can't teach what you haven't lived. And if I haven't lived through a divorce, then I went back to school and got my CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst. So I knew how to position my practice to help those divorcees. I stayed away from them for a little bit because I didn't know how to speak the talk, right? I didn't know how to empathize with them. I had lost my husband. I didn't go through a divorce.
Yeah.
Once going through the CDFA, I'm like, oh my God, my parents were divorced. I watched my mom on the opposite side.
Mm.
What I say to everyone, let's say I'm sitting at the Thanksgiving table, right? And I have one of my nieces. Like the first thing is just know where you are, right? Like know where your flows of income are, know where your assets are. And assets can be anything from a car to a house to retirement funds, right? And I always say, like, make a roadmap, get a marker, get a piece of paper, and just start visualizing. This is where I have flows of income. These are assets that I have. What are your liabilities, right? So what really is the amount of money that you have that you owe, right? Or maybe that you guys owe as a couple, and have that as an inventory. Should you be going through a divorce, you're going to go to your attorney and they're going to need that. It's called like discovery or your property settlement. They're going to need that information. And how do we give it to them with the best of the ability? I'm going to backtrack. If you think you're headed down that line, start organizing your documents now. Right? Start downloading PDFs before some of the passwords change. Start making copies of what you need to copy. Have one safe person in your life who knows this is happening, and make sure you communicate that to them. Really important.
And as far as widowhood goes, you said often you kind of have your finances in order, but what if you don't? What if it's an accident that just happens and the next day, bam, your life
Yeah.
is completely changed? What do you do then?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was really lucky because I knew where the finances were. Like my husband made the money and did the big retirement savings, and I took care of the day to day. If the opposite had happened, if I had passed away, I think he would have been lost. He wouldn't have known the passwords. He wouldn't have known how to pull the information together. So I have a free resource out there. It's called the Personal Document Locator. And that's your first part, sitting with your spouse and having, or a partner, or your best friend or a parent, and having that open conversation of, this is where my will is. This is where the key to the safe deposit box is. This is where I keep my passwords. I love what we call password aggregator, which is like online. So it's a secure site. You put in one big password and then everything else flows through. That's really important. And what I've seen a lot of my widows and widowers go through too is they do the right thing, right? They call in America the Social Security office right away to freeze that Social Security number. They call credit cards right away. Well, many of times, all of a sudden, that freezes their credit. They have no more access to the accounts. They don't have any information out there. So making sure that, or they surrender a cell phone and you need the cell phone for that special 6 digits to get into an account. So making sure that everything's titled correctly ahead of time. Are you a beneficiary, right? Do you have life insurance? Is that correct? Do they have your contact information correct? Doing this heavy lifting and this transparency before you bump into widowhood is really important. Friends of mine that have read the book, A Guide to Widowhood, say, geez, I wish I had that book before I entered widowhood. I'm like, oh, we should relaunch that. Like how to prep for widowhood, like how to do that. The information, a lot of it is the same, right? Like you're saying, Christelle, is we want to get prepped on the front end so that we don't have to be reactive on the back end. Personal document locator, being really transparent with your spouse and your partner or whoever the executor of your will is. Really, really important. Passwords, sharing them, having everything organized in your state documents, work with your accountant, work with your financial planner. That's another big thing. Write down the names of the professionals that you work with. They're going to be the resource that your next generation, your executor needs. And if you don't have that complicated of a financial life, right? You don't have a financial planner, you do your own taxes. Still write it down, be organized, be transparent.
Mm.
Fire safe box for everybody. Everyone listening, fire safe box or a safe, right? Everything hidden under your bed, not going to help, right? We need it to be protected, and we need everything in one spot.
Yeah. I mean, I was widowed because my wife Rachel was she had a big stroke in like 2009, so she didn't die until 2011. So I kind of had this weird situation where we had to cut this interregnum period when she was very ill and disabled. But I know things like that. Her brother was convinced he knew the passcode to her phone, and they managed to lock her phone. And it took like about a year and a bit to get through to the phone company to unlock her phone when she was like just well enough a little bit for a little while to be able to use it again. But I think there is certainly in today's age, with married couples, there's a certain amount of privacy people want. So they don't want to share like their mobile phone or cell phone, as you call it in the US details. Have you got any tips for like a couple who are thinking, oh, maybe we should have this access? Do they give their access, their like PIN numbers to a third party on the case of their death? Is there a way of doing that? Or is it a case that people should be more sharing with their couples? I mean, how should people navigate that in a sort of preparation for the worst case scenario?
So that's half like marriage counselor and that's half financial advisor advice, right? One, sit and have the open conversations and actually realize maybe what someone's boundaries are, right? Like, okay, I will put that information into this locked box. I will sleep with the key to the locked box on my body. So one day if I pass, you have it. Otherwise, here we go. But more than anything, it is that open conversation of why, right? Really, why do we want our information private, right? Maybe they've gone through a divorce before and everything got taken before their divorce. So they want to have money in their own account. They don't trust it anymore. Well, that's okay. And that's respected. Many of our banks, financial advisors, accountants can have trusted contacts on their files so that should something happen, we have the rights to reach out and then get information and share it. So that would be my first step. Make sure beneficiaries are correct. Make sure you have your estate documents done, your will, your power of attorney, your healthcare directive. Many power of attorneys here in the States, you can have one for medicine, like for your health. You can have one for your finances. And it's not a general power of attorney. And again, I'm not a lawyer, consult your lawyer, but it's actually like for if you are incapacitated. Well, there's your privacy right there, right? Like they'll be able to then access your information. It's just how secure did you make your information? And again, that's when like we have a portal with all of my clients and all their information is in the portal. There can be shared access or not, right? So you might even have a list of all those passwords in the shared portal. And until that trusted contact can be, or that executor power of attorney that can be issued, there's no access to it. But as soon as it is issued, you have it there. Organize yourself. So it's think of it as a roadmap for the next person in line.
So Donna, I have a couple questions that I think are important, but I want to make sure we talk about your book too. So I think I'm going to go to your book next. Do you happen to have a copy next to you that we can see?
I do. Hold tight.
We want to see it. Have you seen it, Tim? Have you seen
it? We talked about it on the show.
Okay, on Book Chat Live. Awesome.
Okay, so this is the book. Called A Guide to Widowhood, Navigating the First 3 Years. And in the book, which is really, really nice, and so I encourage anyone who's listening, is a QR code. And in this QR code, you can get all these downloadable documents like the personal document locator, how to organize your information, right? Everything to how to reach out to Social Security, how to find a good financial advisor, all downloadable PDFs that you can kind of apply in life. And for those who aren't tech savvy, we made them into a workbook. So there's a workbook too. So those are really helpful resources out there. The website we have is www.widow-wisdom.com. And you can get a lot of these free downloadable resources straight from there. So that's really awesome. I love that.
Do you do workshops that kind of go along with your workbook and book?
Yeah, thank you for asking. We actually launched last year the version of the book in an 8-week program that we work in groups and we work live. So I'm also a certified grief recovery specialist, which is its very own program. But I do that in person, probably about once or twice a year with small groups of about 8. And then we've had online groups too, because, look at us. We're over in Europe, we're in Pacific Coast, we're on the East Coast right now. We can do that when we're on Zoom. And I love those. That's kind of like a pay it forward that I just kind of give out there. I remember going through counseling and then like in groups with my kids. And once my kids kind of graduated from the counseling, like here I was a mom still trying to navigate all of this and I didn't know how. So I really love that grief recovery method that helped me get the next step going. So we have an 8-week class of the Guide to Widowhood live and in groups. And then we're actually recording it right now so that it can be something we call evergreen, right? So people can go in their own privacy of home if they don't want to do the group class and they can still have hand holding. They can still have access to the workbooks and maybe they just want to see everything live and in action, not just read it, right? Like how do we put our net worth together, right? What does this personal document locator? And when you actually do the activities is when you kind of unlock the next session. So it keeps you accountable for getting it done. Right. So when we talk about how do we prepare for this, right? This is how you prepare. You can take the course, whether you're a widow or not, and get everything pulled together to move forward.
Yeah.
You're gonna make your spouse very nervous when they see that you signed it up for a Guide to Widowhood and you're prepping.
I was gonna say, but I imagine the majority of people who take it, it's after the fact. And you're dealing with deep issues and sorrow.
Yeah. And that's why I find too, with the group work, they become friends, right? Like when we've done it locally, they're going out to dinner together. Like I'm pushed out of the grief recovery group and they're just meeting on their own, right? Because you have a common bond. And the good thing about the grief recovery too is it's not just widowhood. It can be divorce. It could be moving away, right? Like I remember how sad I was when we moved over to Europe. No offense, Tim. It was beautiful. But I never left the state of Pennsylvania as a kid. Like we didn't even go to the Jersey Shore. My mom was scared of boats or of bridges. So we just stayed really, really close. So all of a sudden for me to be in Italy, I was like, right? And I was so sad. That was a big layer of grief for me. So when these people are in the grief recovery method, they're finding that common bond of how do we as humans react to grief? All different types of loss and how all the grief that we've had in the past, how did that make us prepared or ill prepared for where we are right now? And then how do we break through that? And to see people share that emotion without everyone being like, oh, I'm a widow, I'm all a divorcee. It's actually really refreshing, right? It is.
Yeah. What would you say are the biggest myths people have when they think about grieving and that kind of, and widowhood in general? Like, what are the things that, from your experience, people think are going to be the case beforehand, but actually afterwards it's different?
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about widowhood, or maybe it's very similar with divorce, right? Like these family transitions when what you thought was going to be your future is now drastically different, right? And Christelle, you even mentioned like some people just run in the middle of the night, right? And now everything's upside down. What do you do next? I think a lot of it is after a certain period of time, people expect you to quote unquote be okay, right? And you're like, ooh, like I don't know if I'm ever going to be okay, right? Like you live with grief, you don't get over it. So that's a big one. There's a whole course for financial advisors, and there's some specialists out there that I love to follow about what to say and what not to say, right? There's, we've had a recent loss in the family, and my kids always joke saying, like, people tell them, like, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm like, they don't know what else to say. That's all they have. Like, our thoughts are with you. I'm like, they're trying to be kind, right? But they're like, you have to be genuine with it, right? And always watch out. I know myself, and I share in many of my talks and in the book, I said I was like the award-winning widow. Like I was doing a great job year one. If anyone asked how Donna and the kids were, that they are doing great, right? And I just faked it until I could make it all year one. Year two came, and I had already gone through those first holidays. I fell apart. I was an absolute muddy mess, right? Because this was a new reality. I was really writing my head on the fact that this is a new reality. So that's one of the things I see is kind of a myth. Like once the divorce gets settled, once everyone looks like they're in their new routine, well, they are, doesn't mean that they're digesting that routine, right? So have empathy, right? And don't forget about them. So many people would like make us meals or offer to drive the kids in the first 3 months, and then radio silence. And I know they were just really respecting my need for privacy, right? And where maybe here came winter, so people aren't out as much. But wow, a meal here and there, a call to see how you're doing. You're not invading privacy. You're showing that you care. And that's really important too, because you go from a lot to really alone here, right? And I've seen that with so many of my divorced couples too, because many of times friends and families split. What was your support network? No longer exists. They went with the husband's side, right? Friends that you had mutually feel weird, so they just don't see either one of you. Very hard. Like, just be a genuinely kind person to everybody involved and move forward. So
it's a part of humanity. I mean, at some point, everyone goes through loss or divorce, and it's strange that it's such a taboo, like, what do we do topic. So maybe we just need to be talking about it more to normalize it, I guess.
Yeah, and putting it out there, right? And people, many of times, they won't ask you, like, how are you doing financially, right? But it is on their minds. Like, I knew my in-laws, all they wanted to do was know me and the kids were going to be okay, right? So it's a hard topic to bring up. It's a privacy thing, but I think it's okay to say, hey, do you have the professional help that you need? I know somebody who, right? And that's it. Give them solutions. Dan Sullivan has a great book out there called Who, Not How, right? So Tim, if you ask me for my book list, that's on there now. But sometimes it's okay to give them a suggestion of who, not how. I don't know if you're interested, but this accountant really, really does a good job. They have a good personal touch. If you're ever interested, here's their card.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to put some who's in their way. I'm going to add one more. Doing nice favors for the people, like having someone come and pick up the leaves, like here in the States during fall. They don't have to ask for it, right? Having someone come bring up their trash cans, have someone come and wash their car, right? Clean out the gutters. Like, don't ask, do you need help? Most of us widows and divorcees will be like, no, we're good, right? Award winning. We're fine. We're independent. We can do it on our own.
It's like with that cartoon with the fire in the background.
Right? And more than anything, my widowers, I find my widowers have so much pride around them, so much ego around them, that asking for help is very hard. So my advice is just do. Don't ask, just do.
We're in the holidays. This can be one of the most detrimental times of the year for people who have just gone through loss. Like you said, first or second year even. First holiday away from their significant other. What is your advice for those of us who know someone grieving during the holidays?
To how to support someone who's already grieving. Some of it is asking, how would you like this to go? Right. I remember my husband, Greg, passed right before Thanksgiving. We always hosted Thanksgiving. And my one sister-in-law sat me down. She's like, will it make you happy to host again? And I was like, oh no. Like, no, it's the prep for the hosting. I love the party. I just like the cleaning the toilets, the dusting. I was like, that's not happening right now. I'm in deep grief. I get a reprieve. So we wound up, she was like, well, how would you like that to work? Right. So she did host it at her house. Right. And I was like, one thing I wouldn't like is I don't want to sit down. Right. Like, I don't want to see a missing chair. I don't want the head count to be different. Can we do a buffet? Right. That was something little, but meant the world to me. So ask, what would you like to keep the same? What traditions would you like to reinvent? Which ones are sacred to you? And it might change from year 1 to year 2. And if the widow or the widower or the divorcee just wants to have a quiet night on their own, right? Maybe a bottle of wine and some TV, let them, if that's what they want. Now, if they do that day after day after day after day, something else needs to happen, right? You need to bring in some professionals. You need to bring in some other layer of support. But if it's just, no, I just want to have a quiet night on my own, respect that. Yeah. I think a lot too, for people who do have young children, right, is the needs of the mom or the dad might be very different than the needs of the kids, and recognizing that. Doing some special events for the kids, right, as a community are really fun. Like, we're all going to go see Christmas lights here. Let's jump into our minivan. Come with us, right? Like, and to keep them busy and active, to give a little bit of peace for the mom or dad there too, because so many of us become single parents or sole parents. It's that break that we might need. We might need that break so we can go cry. Like, I remember crying in my minivan after I dropped the kids off because they were always in the house, right, on my way to work. That was my one quiet time, was the commute from dropping the kids off to going to work, right? So maybe offer to take the kids for a weekend, right? Maybe send the mom or dad away for a little retreat. Awesome. Awesome.
I'm going to try and do the whole look on the bright side thing. Do you think there are any? I mean, I suppose I've got my own answer in my head, but do you think there are any lessons that people learn from widowhood, especially? I mean, I can't talk about divorce because I've been divorced, but do you think there are positives that come out of the experience of being widowed in your life?
And so I can talk for myself as well as some of my friends, some of my clients, right, that I've seen gone through. I tend to travel in a big widowed community because I've put myself there, right? For many, it has been an opportunity to recreate a mission moving forward. There's a podcast that I follow in a group called the Widow Squad, and they do so many nice things for widows and the education and the support they bring. That was from widows that recreated their lives, right? So many are remarried and they have other careers, but this is something they still put out there. So for many, I've seen them create a mission, and where life was just everyday living, now it has a drive, right? Or they're very much living in 24-hour periods or minutes, right? Instead of being like, oh, I have time to do that. They are out there. They are going on the trips. They are doing what they need to do. They are going back to school. Some of us had to recreate our careers, right? I was so young when I lost Greg that I had years for retirement, that I had to support the kids, life insurance, and in the state, Social Security help for the kids. They end at a certain point. I had to, we say, put my big girl panties on and get on my own 2 feet. I had to. It was financially needed. That pushed me to go and educate myself again. I've seen lots of widows do that, go back to nursing school. And even my widowers. What I've seen with my widowers, because most of them are the breadwinner, right? When they actually, the grief settles a bit, right? And they're ready to get out there in other relationships. The way they handle themselves in the second relationship or in the new relationship is very different. It's almost like you take the lessons learned, what you might have taken for granted for the other person, how maybe you didn't talk about the finances, and they clear it all up. And they find somebody that wants to be receptive to that. Very picky on the other side of it. Very picky. And that's a good thing, right? Didn't we all wish that we were so quote unquote picky the first time? But I think many of us were young, right? And we didn't have life lessons under our belt. So I see lots of that. Some really beautiful relationships that are highly mature and functioning on the other side, as well as people finding their own mission, re-educating themselves, reinventing themselves. It's, in most of the cases I've seen, it either brings an extended family closer or maybe it doesn't. And both can have benefits at the same time. So
I know Tim has talked about his story a bit, and Tim, you said you have some advice. I want to hear Tim's side too, because he is a widower. So Tim, in 30 seconds or whatever, I've already heard your story, so I know it's a lot more than this, but what's your advice from the male perspective?
Well, I mean, I have kind of changed my life totally since I was widowed, partly because of the circumstances, but it was also it kind of freed up my mindset in a way from doing the sort of 9-to-5 IT job that I was doing before, to not doing a 9-to-5 job. Doing this, I wouldn't be doing this at all. I wouldn't be doing. Well, I don't know, but I think it's unlikely. So yeah, I mean, it has changed my life, and I think a lot. It's the shock of widowhood can make a. I mean, it probably can. I'm not sure if divorce is the same. So I think there are subtle differences. I think divorce could be the same, but you've got so much ancillary mess with divorce. And with widowhood, it doesn't always happen that way, because I didn't have any children. So that's one thing. And it was a massive organizational task to arrange and sort everything out, but it wasn't it was a shock, and then it was like, well, what do I do now? So that's kind of where I came from. I think that was more than 30 seconds. So.
It was, but I remember you saying something really interesting, because it hit me, and it was something like, you don't take time for granted anymore.
No. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I think every time I've been reminded of death, it makes a big difference. Because Western society is in denial about death a lot of the time. And you can see in a lot of fiction, it's like Doctor Who has been rebooted again, and it's like they never kill any of the characters off. And it's like, well, I can understand, but it's like this is part of life. If you never encounter death, then you don't have that feeling, oh, you've only got another 10, 20, 30 years, or could be another year. And I think that is one advantage in a way to widowhood, and you're reminded that you only have so long to do stuff.
Yeah. Donna, where can our friends and viewers and anyone who needs to find you, and we're going to be sending people your way, where can they find you online? Where can they find your workshops, your books, everything?
Yep, almost everything is linked straight from it is from the widow-wisdom.com website. So www.widow-wisdom.com. The podcast is on Spotify, Google, and Apple, and that's Widow Wisdom and Wealth. But then from there too, from the widow-wisdom.com, you can get onto my Instagram. You can get onto my TikTok. Not that good at TikTok. You can see me walking my dog a lot. It was a challenge. It was a 30-day challenge. And I was like, I'll stay to my Instagram right now. Thank you. But Instagram, and we have Facebook out there too. And a few YouTubes that are coming out. So just to be able to have that information, our grief recovery information's on there. The 8-week course is on there. So yeah, that's the treasure trove of where all the information is.
And I think Tim would tell us, if you scan the little code where it says scan me, it'll take you to his website, and we'll find out.
Hopefully I'll remember to put all the information. I think at the moment it probably just says your website. So I need to put
all good. That's again, that'll take them where they need to go. But I appreciate the opportunity to spread all that information and love. Because that's what it is. It's a mission to help people change their lives.
Well, thanks so much for being the guest this week. And I'm going to try and play the outro without screwing it up for a change. So thanks to everybody watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Next week.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Christelle.
This is what God requires.